What's going on, everybody? The Cohen Riggins here with Notis Studios. We're back inside Sound Design Central, and today we're going to talk about compression. So before we get started, go on and click that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you'll know every time we put out a new video. Let's jump right in. So here we are in DaVinci Resolve talking about compression. What is it? What does it do? All of those different things. So compression is the process of reducing the signal's dynamic range. The dynamic range is the difference between the loudest and the quietest parts of a sound wave or audio file. And what you want to try to do, especially when you're mixing film, is keep the dynamic range from, loud sound effects to quiet dialogue. You want it to have impact and dynamic range, but you don't want it to be so far apart and out of control that it's really affecting people's hearing and ears. So some of the reasons why you use a compressor is to control the transients. Now, what is the transients of a sound wave? So the transients are the first high energy points of a certain sound wave. You look at something like a gunshot. As you can see the sound wave right here on the screen, that initial burst of energy at the beginning of the gunshot, then it tails off and gets quieter. You want it to have that range, but you don't want the range to be too great. So you put a compressor on there to tame some of that transients down from being too wide of a dynamic range. But some of the things that we'll talk about is the threshold, which is right here. I'm using the FabFilter Pro C2. It's a compressor that I like to use, but all of your DAWs and NLEs come with, stock compressors that you can definitely use, and they pretty much all have the same thing and work the same. Some people just get accustomed to using others over others, and for me, I like the FabFilter Pro C2. So your threshold is going to set the level at which your compressor starts to work. So right now, with me just opening up FabFilter Pro C, it sets me right at -18. And of course, if I come up here and change some of these settings, let's say for drums, and I want to go for a snare, and I wanted to have a natural sustain, let's see. It still keeps me at -18 dB for my threshold, where it starts to work. My compressor will start to work anything that goes over -18 dB. So my ratio determines how much gain reduction my compressor will apply when the signal goes above the threshold, right? So the higher the number on my ratio, the greater the factor, the greater reduction happens. So if you look at this is a 8.5 to 1 reduction. That means it's going to be reduced by 8.5 decibels, dB, which is what compressors are measured in, decibels. So if we move on and we look at the attack and the release, these two kind of work in tandem. Your attack does exactly what it says. When does your compressor start? It jumps on and attacks right at the start, or however many milliseconds you allow for it to lay dormant until it clips on. And then your release is the exact opposite. How long does it hold the compressor on until it lets it go? So you can have a fast attack and fast release. You can have a slow attack and a slow release, or vice versa. These two, again, can and pretty much they are yin and yang to each other. So next thing we have on here is our gain with our wet signal. So this just turns up the volume on your compressor, the output of the compressed wave. You can turn that up and down. There's a couple other things we have on here. So we talk about the knee. What the knee does is it tells the compressor how to interact, how to transition from uncompressed audio to compressed audio and out. And there's, like I said, two ways: hard knee and a soft knee. And what I like about FabFilter Pro C2 is it's not just a hard button or a soft button, but it's a range in which you can actually dial in how hard or soft the compressor kicks in and kicks off. If it gradually grabs on, or if it just automatically cuts really hard when it comes in. And the last thing we'll talk about is the range. The range is the dynamic range in which the compressor works, and it limits the maximum amount of gain change. So it's set to 9 dB. So the gain change that is applied can't be any more than 9 dB, which, if you look at the ratio, is set at 8.5. So again, the compressor, it works to control transients and dynamic range within an audio file, and it will help you keep your quiet and loud parts a little close together. Again, if you take a look at this wave file here, you can see the uncompressed file and you can see the compressed file. There's a difference in the two. If you take a look at the loudest parts and the quietest parts, how the compressed files brought them more together, made them more unified. So again, this is just a basic looking at the components of mixing, and this one is compression. There you have it, the basics of compression. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and click that notification bell. Make sure you go check out some of our other videos here on our YouTube channel.